Hello and welcome to Unit 6. In this video I will be discussing Chapter 6 in our book. Chapter 6 describes how to support hard drives and other storage devices. So let's take a look. Here on the page 232 we have three different examples of hard drives. We have a magnetic type, which has a spinning disk inside. Here's a solid state drive, and then here's another magnetic drive. This is probably for a notebook, just because of the smaller size. We're talking about about the technologies inside a hard drive. A solid state has basically non-volatile RAM chips in it. So it'd be more like ROM actually. Non-volatile means that when the power is turned off, that the information is retained on the chip. Just like a flash drive. And then here we have a magnetic disk drive, which is a spinning disk. It's made out of a silicon wafer. It's specially treated and manufactured. Spins around. Here's the read-write head that's on the read-write arm. Spins around at different speeds and reads your data or writes data to the disk. With the magnetic disk, they're divided into tracks and sectors. This is one track, and then each track is basically pied out. That's called a sector, and a sector holds a specific amount of bits. Here's a serial ATA drive, and you can tell because this is a thinner cable. Parallel cable is much wider, it's gray in color. Serial is much faster because it has dedicated channels. One side of this cable is send receive only, and then the other side is receive send only. There's Sata Ports. There's a coin cell with more Sata ports. So Sata could be internal or external. Hands-on Project 6-1, examine UEFI BIOS settings for a hard drive. If you don't know how to do this, please email me and I will try to help you the best I can. This part of the chapter talks about how to select and install a hard drive. And again, more setups to install a SATA drive. Here, step 2. Read the documentation and prepare your work area. It's always best to know what you're getting into before you get into it. And if you don't know what you're doing, the recommendation is always stop, ask questions, do some research, get some help, but don't just dive in not knowing what you're doing. Please. Again, this person has got the grounding strap connected to the case. That is not a proper ground. And do not use magnetic tip tools ever. Grounding to the case again, not recommended. Do not use magnetic tip tools. Here are some Sata ports on a motherboard. This is where you have to be really careful because all these little chip caps here and these other components, just have to be really careful around them because if they crack or break or something happens to them, the motherboard is basically broken and needs to be replaced. And every drive needs a communications cable, which is your SATA cable, and power. So there's the power cable. And then here's talks about installing the hard drive into a bay. And I talked about this in a previous chapter about how each manufacturer has different mounting hardware that goes onto the drive, and then the drive can mount into the drive cage, which can then mount into the chassis. Here is this solid state drive configured with the mounting hardware. Here we talk about installing a hard drive in a laptop. Remember, laptops are smaller, so the scale changes. Usually it's fairly easy to do these things. Most manufacturers try to make it simple. As you can see here, this one is held in by a screw, and probably, yep, there's like there's at least a slide lever here, maybe two. Whenever you're doing this, always make sure you have backups. And here the chapter talks about RAID hardware, redundant array of inexpensive disks or independent disks. There are different RAID configurations. As you can see here, RAID 0, 1, 5, RAID 10, also called RAID 1 plus 0. And then there's a hardware RAID. This is a real big drain on your system resources, so be wary before you try to set that up. There are 3 hard drives, and here's a RAID controller card for looks like SATA internal connections. We'll talk about BIOS and setting up and configuring for a RAID array. If you don't know what you're doing, don't jump in. And then we talk about external drive enclosures. Very common. You can pick from many different types. These usually tend to be much bigger, or they can be, because they stack a pretty wide amount of drives in there. Hands-on Project 6-2, select a replacement hard drive. And then Hands-on Project 6-3, prepare for hard drive hardware problems. You can write about this. You don't necessarily have to execute the steps in real life. Again, if you have any questions before you do these, please email me beforehand and I'll do my best to help. And then 6-4, installing a hard drive. Again, email me if you're having resource issues or questions. Tape drives, not so common anymore. They used to be very common 20 plus years ago. And that's exactly what it is. It's a cassette tape. And tape stretches and wears out. DVDs have a much longer life expectancy, and solid state drives, are the next progression. So there are many other things other than just tape drives. Excuse me. Although tape drives are still common among business. Here's a tape, more tape. And then there are we talk here about supporting other types of storage devices, and then the file systems used by storage devices. Here are standards used by optical drives and disks. And you can see in this table here, Blu-ray disc Double-sided, dual layer, 50 gigs. That's a pretty good amount. These types of tables, again, you're going to have to memorize if your intent is to get A+ certified. Lots of memorization. Hands-on project 6-5, learn learn how optical drives work. You can write about this if you'd like. Installing, replacing an optical drive in a laptop. Again, if you can't do this, that's fine. Email me if you have any questions. See what we can get set up for you. Solid state storage. These are called thumb drives, flash drives, jump drives. Lots of different names, right? It's all the same. It's solid state. Means that there's a chip on the inside here of a size, and that is where the information gets stored. This is the same technology that's used in solid state drives. More types of SD. Here are flash memory devices. Hands-on project 6-6. Shopping for storage media. You do not actually have to buy something. Okay, so if you want to go through and price this and go through this, that's fine. Just, it's not a requirement to spend for this project. Then we get into troubleshooting hard drives, things like slow performance, hard drive problems during the boot. It can be very maddening. The main thing I will always enforce and recommend to students and anyone is you've really got to have backups. Backups are very critical, and more than one copy. And then here's the chapter summary on page 272. We talk about hard drive technologies and interface standards, how to select and install hard drives, identifying tape drives, supporting other types of storage devices, troubleshooting hard drives, key terms, and then reviewing the basics, thinking critically, and then real problems, real solutions. If you want to write about these, that's fine too.